What's going on, guys? Just wanted to talk a little bit about Team USA and Canada's final game that just passed in Boston. And man, what an ending to a crazy tournament that was. That was some of the best hockey that I've seen in a long time. And Canada gets it done. They beat the US 3-2 in Boston in overtime. And as an American fan, just hate to see it, but these two teams were so close that not surprised. I mean, the margin was so close, and the U.S. just had their freaking chances, and they just could not get it done. Sucks to see, but it is what it is. We'll see what happens in the Olympics next year. I think it's been proven that these two teams are very close, and the margin of error is a goal. It's just a goal. I mean, it's razor thin, and man, that was crazy. But I wanted to talk more, today about just the tournament in general, how great it was, and really, I I can't wait to see like how the NHL messes up after a tournament like that. I think we all know now how we were all reminded how great international hockey is by this tournament, and I can't believe that it was even a debate. I don't understand why there was a segment of hockey fans that didn't believe in this tournament and thought it was going to be like an all-star game. And I guess maybe that's just because some people just haven't seen international hockey in so long that they forgot how intense it gets. like, as someone who's been, I've been watching and playing hockey since 2005. So it's been 20 years for me. It's crazy to think that, but I had the chance to see the '06 Olympics as a kid, 2010 as well, 2014 I was already a little older, but I got to watch and experience three Olympics. I have much stronger memories of 10 and 14, but saw three Olympics. I've seen the World Cup of hockey that they did in 16, but just watching any of those tournaments, you could see how much playing for your flag gets guys jacked up, and I don't understand why so many people are just like, I don't know, they didn't think that was, we were gonna have the same effect. It was gonna have the same effect in this tournament, just because a few countries weren't there, which you know yeah, would have been nice if there were more teams, but any even if this was just Canada and the US for three games, like a best of three series between Canada and the US, it would have been crazy. No matter what they did, as long as you have international competition, specifically between Canada and the US, and it is no disrespect to, any of the other countries, Finland, Sweden, Russia, Czech Republic, all, Germany, all of them. No disrespect to any of those countries, but we all knew that what was going to sell international hockey the most for fans in the US and Canada was seeing Canada and the US play. And, we got a two-game series between them, and the ratings were phenomenal. The players bought in, and it was awesome. And it's just, it still blows my mind that people were just not about this tournament. And I hope that this tournament showed that, yeah, we need to go back to having more international competition. Obviously, we have the Olympics next year and then the World Cup in 28. I I'm upset that they still are trying to do the All-Star game. I'm honestly at a point where I feel like you can do a tournament like this every year, and it wouldn't get old. Like, if you're willing to do an All-Star game every year, I don't see why you wouldn't do something like this every year, because the All-Star game sucks. I think we all agree on that. The All-Star game sucks, and it sucked for probably 10 to 15 years now, if not longer. But it's been terrible for a very long time. And it's just, this is just so much better. And, obviously there's a risk of injury. We saw a lot of guys get hurt in this tournament, which I'm sure teams are upset about, that it sucks. But maybe, I mean, it doesn't really decrease the risk of injury, but if I'm the NHL, I'm sitting here and saying, why don't we shorten up the schedule, leave and kind of change things up a little bit and have this opening for 3 weeks where you host your own Olympic tournament where you don't need to send it, because you also got to think of it like this. The Olympics are awesome. We love watching it, but the Olympics are almost always overseas. I think there is going to be, well, no, actually, the next Winter Olympics is in 26. It's in Italy, and then I don't know where 30 is, but it's very rarely it's in the US or Canada. So you're almost always playing on a time difference. And with that, you kind of alienate the audience that you want to be watching, which is the American and Canadian audiences, because the game, I mean, people still watch, but it throws things off when it's somewhere else. It throws things off, and they usually try to find a way to accommodate and make the games at certain times at work. But somebody's getting a raw end of the deal. And I remember when it was in Sochi in 2014 that, like, you were having games like early in the morning, and granted, maybe it's not the U.S. and Canada, but you're having other superstars from the NHL playing in games that are at times that, yeah, nobody's watching, right? And granted, the focus is always going to be the U.S. and Canadian teams. Those will be the teams that draw the most. But you're talking about growing the game. Like, have tournaments here. Do more tournaments here, and don't just do a world. Like, I really think we're at a point where, yeah, like, we can do tournaments every year. But you got to shorten the schedule, obviously, because it will be demanding on players. If for play, imagine players that play a full regular season, play in that tournament, whatever it is, and then they go into the playoffs in the NHL. It adds a lot of games. But that's why I'm saying, yeah, maybe shorten the NHL schedule and just do a yearly international tournament. It's just, it's so much better. That product was so much better. I will say this though, the hockey itself, like that game, like it's like the guys were playing at such a high level that, like, there was like no room for offense, which was a bit interesting. Like, it felt like, I thought this game might, and it kind of opened up the final between Canada and the U.S. It opened up in overtime. I thought that would happen earlier. I thought maybe they would, the teams would kind of trade more chances, but God, that for the first 3 periods of that game was just so tightly contested, and like there was just no room out there, and it can be a little tough. Like, I ratings wise, I'm sure that game did phenomenal, but in terms of like viewer satisfaction, like whether you were a fan of like either team, I don't know if you were like, if you enjoyed it. Like a casual fan, like you got to be like a hockey you have to be like a hockey diehard to really appreciate that game. I feel like the casual fan might not have been as into that game just because of how tightly contested it was. And obviously, there's nothing you can really do about that. Like, you know, team strategies are team strategies. But it was interesting to me that you kind of saw, I mean, two really good offensive teams have just not have any room out there at all. But yeah, I'm in the camp at this point where the NHL just like needs to do tournaments like this more often. I don't understand why they would go back to an all-star game, because your all-star game is never ever gonna draw anywhere near what that just drew. Granted, was that like a once in a lifetime type of event? Maybe, but I still think that international hockey will always have a better chance of doing well overall, just on a year to year basis. And I mean, that was bigger than most Winter Classic games, I think, right? I mean, and the Winter Classic used to be a marquee event for the NHL, and now it's like it's just kind of become irrelevant because of the Stadium Series. So really, the NHL doesn't have like a big, you know, in season thing going on, like until the playoffs, right? I mean, which is crazy. Like, you really don't, like, the regular season and everything going on in it, like, it never gets people as invested as that tournament did. And again, was it a special set of circumstances? I think so. I definitely think so. Will we ever see circumstances like that again? I probably not. But the games still matter, and I think as long as you have the players that are in the tournament caring and that are genuinely interested in competing in this in whatever event that you create, it can always succeed. It can always draw. It can always get people excited, just like that tournament did. And still, I mean, granted, like the going into that tournament, we all knew that there were things going on between the U.S. and Canada, but nobody was expecting the game to kind of just the first game too, the first one, because I don't think that this game had the same emotion and energy that first one did. I don't think even though the championship was on the line, I still feel like that first game was just I don't know. The energy in that game was something else, and I'm not saying that just because the US won it. It's just even if the US won this game, it you know, that first one was different. That first one felt different. And but it's like nobody saw it coming even with everything that was going on. It's just once you get into a tournament like this and you realize what you're playing for and that what you're playing for is bigger than yourself. It's bigger than the name on your back, and it's about something more than that. It's about your country, it's about where you're from, it's about your people. It the games just magnify by I mean, listen, even the Finland Sweden game was unreal. It was unreal. And that's a game that I mean, did it have the same draw as Canada US? No, but that was a huge game. That was a huge game. And that grows the sport. It grows the sport in different play. You got people that overseas are watching NHL talent play and represent their country, and that it gets people excited. It's just I don't know. I really hope the NHL doesn't mess up, but they will. They will. I know they will because they got lucky with this one. They got lucky that they have the players that they do, and they had the set of circumstances that they did because the NHL has been so anti-international competition for so long, and this was like a half-assed all right, here you go and let's see what happens. Again, they're lucky that they have the guys that they do playing at the level that they do that care as much as they do, because it was the players that made that tournament special. And I mean, especially the Kachucks, like the freaking Kachucks completely energized that tournament. And it's a shame that Matthew couldn't really play much towards the end of it, past really, game one and a period. Sucks that happened. But yeah, the players made that tournament what it was. Like, absolutely, the players just ran away with it, and it was great to watch. And I truly hope that that the NHL realizes what they have here and just maximize it. Go and honestly, I'm almost at a point where it's like get rid of the freaking Winter Classic, get rid of the stupid stadium series. I mean, they won't because it makes money, whatever. I guess, but I don't know. I feel like if you did something like this on a yearly basis, you would just do so much better for the sport. I mean, there's no Winter Classic, there's no Stadium Series that is gonna perform at that level. And here's the thing: even if you get different outcomes of, like, say the U.S. Plays eventually plays, whenever Russia is included back in international competition. Say the U.S. goes up against Russia one year. You don't think that game would rile people? I mean, look at how much people were buying into the miracle. This wasn't a miracle situation at all. Like, it wasn't a David against Goliath type story, but they're turning, they turned this U.S. team into, Miracle 2.0. I mean, imagine you get the U.S. actually playing against Russia in a future tournament. You don't think that game's going to draw? Of course it is. Of course it is. It's going to draw way more. If they played in a hypothetical final for a future tournament, yeah, it would draw. If Canada played, there's so many good opportunities that come from international hockey, and it doesn't get old because again, that idea of playing for something bigger than yourself, it will always speak to the players. It'll always get players excited, and like when you look at Winter Classics and these Stadium Series games, all that's on the line is 2 points in the season. So yeah, you get this whole good, feeling of, oh, the players are playing outside, roots of the game, and we love going outside. And I remember skating on my pond when I was a kid. I mean, that's just the whole gimmick of that game. And it gets old after a while, to the point where even the guys playing it are like, oh yeah, this was cool. All right, they have their families come out and skate, the day before, and yay, okay, we went outside, and that's it. And then nobody remembers it. I mean, nobody cares. Like, there hasn't been a consequential Winter Classic game since I don't know, since Crosby was playing in them, right? I mean, since the late 2000s and the early 2010s. Like, what was the last consequential Winter Classic game? We haven't had one, right? And whereas with this tournament, no one is ever going to forget that the fights. If you're a Canadian fan, I'm gonna do my best to forget the McDavid goal as an American fan. But yeah, Canadians are gonna remember that McDavid goal for the rest of their lives. And that was created in a 4-team international tournament thrown together last second by the NHL. That, yeah, you could create those moments literally every single year. Every single year. As special as the Stanley Cup is, as memorable as the Stanley Cup is, you could do the same exact thing with international competition in North America every single year if you wanted to. And I feel like we're just at that point where, yeah, it's time. And if this tournament doesn't make the NHL realize what they have, I don't know what will. Because that was just that was it. That tournament should have solidified the NHL stance on international competition. And yes, you should risk star players potentially getting hurt in a tournament like that. It sucks. It sucks. Nobody wants to see it, but again, I mean, look at what these guys were willing to do. Crosby's playing with one hand. Kachuk is trying to skate around on a pulled groin that, I mean, the dude couldn't move, but he still tried to play. Uh, McAvoy, hope all of them are okay too. McAvoy, the injury he goes through with his shoulder and going to the hospital and his and the infection. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy what these guys went through in this tournament. Theodore injuring his wrist. I mean, a lot of guys got hurt in this freaking tournament, but it's created just this buzz around hockey. It's gotten people excited. Now, obviously, we're going to have a huge adrenaline dump because we're going back to regular NHL games for a few weeks until the playoffs. But I think this pacing is great. And maybe if you want, do the tournament a little earlier, do it in January so guys can heal up before the playoffs. But either way, I don't see how you go away from this tournament or versions of this tournament going forward. And no, it shouldn't just be every 2 years, every 4 years. It should be every year, because that formula will never ever get old. It'll never get old. Players will never get sick of playing for their country. They will always be fired up, no matter what the climate is in any country. People will always be proud to represent their flag. Always. They were proud back in 1980. They were proud in 1972, 1960. You go back and back through the years to the 2000s, to 2010, to 2014. People always get jacked up to play for their national team. For years. So just run with it. Freaking run with it. And I really hope the NHL does, because that was just a great tournament, and bittersweet ending for being an American fan, but uh, just a great tournament of hockey, and I hope they keep doing it. I really do, in whatever form they can. I really do. But just wanted to share some thoughts on that, and I obviously recap the game a little bit, but I don't want to go too far into it because I am a salty American right now. But uh, Canada gets it done. What a game, and I can't wait for the freaking Olympics because maybe we get a rematch. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below about the tournament, what your thoughts on the game were, all that fun stuff, and whether or not you'd like to see the NHL continue to do this international tournament stuff on a yearly basis. Definitely let me know what you think. And other than that, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. It goes a long way. Appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next one.